The Invest in Her podcast is brought to you in part by Wells Fargo Bank. Hi, I'm Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award-winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome to this week's episode of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation and producer of the new movie, Show Her the Money. In fact, today I have on one of our associate producer investors, and we're going to be talking about what she does. She is both a physician's executive and an advisor. Please welcome to the show, Eva Balint. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You bet. And, today we're going to be talking about how you went from corporate America to entrepreneurship. Because I think, a lot of people don't know, but you are a doctor, an endocrinologist.
Yes.
And then you ran some pretty big companies in an executive position, working with everybody from Roche Diagnostic to United Healthcare, Providence, you were a big cheese there, right? And now you're helping doctors understand how they can get out of maybe a situation that could be a burnout or, have become monotonous because they're doing the same thing year after year. And the healthcare system is set up in such a way that it does burn them out. And so how can that be fixed? And you're like the fixer. You're the advisor. And
Yes.
You have decided to take what you know about that executive position and help doctors transition into leadership and maybe even entrepreneurship, right? Like that's the path that you took.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. I think that's super exciting that you're helping doctors make that transition.
Yes. So I think it's very important for doctors to be in the leadership positions and also for them to have leadership skills, because when we graduate from medical school, we know everything about illnesses, but we don't really have leadership training. And we step into a position of power day one when we graduate from medical school. So I help doctors close that gap, because I think doctors also have a very big role in leading organizations. Like I was in those positions, and I think it's very important for doctors to set the direction. Sometimes organizations go and focus on financials, but doctors are there to redirect and say, hey, we are here for our patients. So I help physicians to make that transition from practice to leadership roles and increasing levels of leadership roles to help them align with the organizations with the need of the patient.
And when did you have this epiphany that, wow, you're here leading these very large organizations in the medical field, and seeing I think, stop me if I'm wrong, seeing what was broken and how you could start a business to help fix that. Is that right?
Yes.
I think that's so fascinating. And it always takes a woman to, in my opinion, to see the cracks in something and say, hey, what could be better? And you've been in both of those positions. You've been the doctor and you've been the executive, and you can see how to fix it. And I think it's great that you're going to take what you learned and help these doctors make these transitions. And how's that been going? How do you find your clientele, and what are some success stories that you've seen?
Yeah, so I work with physicians, and not just with physicians. I focus on women and physicians, but I help them transition into these roles or transition into larger roles in leadership. And I also work with organizations, like larger organizations, medical groups, hospitals that want to move towards value-based care or align care delivery, with patient outcomes, physician well-being. And I also work with startups, and especially female startup founders, because I think we have a lot of opportunity in healthcare to bring new ways of relating with patients and to take advantage of programs like a government program. For example, the federal government is investing large amounts of money into women's health, and there are more and more startups that take advantage of that. And eventually, I think it will change medical science. Because if you think about it's sort of paradoxical, but a lot of medical science is based on the male body.
I know. I've heard that.
Yeah. So there is a large investment from the federal government to research and to understand female bodies. And when we think of women's health, often we think of reproductive health only. But there's much more to the female body. There is very little talk about menopause or very little knowledge. So there are an increasing number of startups that move into this space. And I work with a few of them to help move the field forward.
I just love what you're doing and love what you're talking about right now, because it only has been a discussion that people have been having recently about how all the trials have been on men. That's so bizarre to me to even find that out. Like, who knew? Like, why wouldn't they be doing test trials for, cures for cancer and different things, cures for whatever, arthritis or whatever? Like, why wouldn't they be using a pool of both men and women? Why was the focus just on men? And why weren't they studying things like menopause? There seems to be a big wave of people realizing, and usually I'm talking about this in the investment world, but this goes across all sectors, is that why haven't we been putting a focus on women? We're more than 50% of the population. It's really crazy, isn't it? And so I love that you're shedding light on this and that you're trying to make changes in this arena. So getting back to helping the doctors transition, one of the things that you're doing is helping them to look at new ways of being funded so that they're not in a burnout situation trying to see so many patients.
Yes.
Now, many of them are moving over to a concierge type of thing where they don't have as many patients and those people are paying an annual fee. Everybody knows that this is what most wealthy people are doing today.
Yes.
But what about the rest of the population? So you and I were having a great conversation about how you're helping companies transition to these government programs that could allow them to be paid differently so that they can spend more time with patients, and that the patients that are not as wealthy could have great medical services as well. How is that transitioning, and how are you helping with that?
Yeah, so I serve as an advisor to organizations, especially physician leaders who are making that transition. So there are programs in California through the even in the Medicaid program where there are alternative ways of payment. So traditionally, the doctor provided care, and then there was a payment for each episode, regardless of outcome. It's called fee-for-service. And there are movements. It is actually pushed very much by Medicare, a government program, and it's called an alternative payment model. And in California, even the Medicaid program picked it up, and there are opportunities to get paid differently. A lot of organizations do a lot of good work to manage populations differently, to focus on quality outcomes, patient outcomes, reduce total cost, and focus on physician well-being. But in the traditional payment model, it's very difficult to make ends meet.
Right. So what's happening in the broken system is the doctors are overworked and the majority of people are not getting good health care. And this is an attempt to fix that, right?
Yes.
And you're helping organizations and doctors transition into this new
payment model.
Payment model. And how does the payment model work? It's fascinating.
So the new payment model is called value-based care. And in value-based care, it opens up the possibility to get paid for management of populations. Instead of each episode, the organizations can create alternatives in healthcare delivery and negotiate models either with local health plans or national health plans or through the Medicaid model to receive care for good outcomes, for quality outcomes, and for patient outcomes that currently are not considered.
So they're actually paid on the outcome.
Yes.
So it helps them to care more, spend more time.
Yes.
But then they get automatically paid and don't have to chase the payment.
Well, it's not automatic, but there are opportunities, and there are some organizations in the U.S. that are doing it very well. So instead of getting paid per the episode, they get a larger payment, and then it frees up the organizations to create services or provide care in a way that would not be otherwise billable under the current model.
Now, when you say they get paid for populations, like they might get paid to service a neighborhood or a certain...
Organizations do that, but sometimes sometimes they have a population, let's say like 10,000 or 15,000 patients.
Okay.
And so instead of having payment for each episode every time a patient goes to the doctor, they look at the outcome for the whole population. For example, are they getting good screenings? Are they able to get into the office timely? So currently there's limited opportunity to get paid for those type of services. Or sometimes the patient goes to the office and they need to be seen by the doctor because otherwise the organization doesn't get paid. But what if it's just a quick visit and the patient can be seen by someone else, maybe just an advice from the nurse? So under the new payment models, it is possible to do.
I see. So it's changing it to make it better, to make it more accessible, but the doctors get paid maybe a large sum of money instead of per visit. And that way they feel like their time is freed up because they know the payment is guaranteed and they're going to get a certain amount, and they can really put the focus on the patient instead of on the payment.
Yeah, that is the point, that the focus shifts from trying to make sure that they get paid to what is really this patient needs. Because if you think about it, we just think about patient populations, but we are individuals. And the same service may or may not be appropriate for a different patient. Like when you go to the office to see your doctor, or I do, we will need very different services. And then if you think about others who have maybe insecurities of housing or food insecurity, they will need very different services in addition to needing help with their physical condition. So these newer payment models are creating conditions where the whole patient can be served in a holistic way. So you talked about the concierge model, and it is a little bit like that, moving into other areas of healthcare where patients would not be able to afford to go to see a concierge doctor.
You know, I think something has to be done to fix our healthcare system and to make it more equal for all people and more accessible for all people. So I think the work you're doing is really important, and it's great that you're taking your knowledge of having been a doctor and having run these big healthcare organizations and seeing what needs to be done, and then what the new opportunities are, and helping organizations to transition in that is a really important role, as well as helping these doctors learn about how to be leaders, and then, like you said, maybe ultimately entrepreneurs. And what would that look like? Give me for instance, a doctor might be listening now thinking, you know what, I am really burnt out. I either need a new model or I need to maybe start a whole new, business of my own. what types of businesses are you seeing them interested in doing?
It is amazing to realize that the medical diploma is so versatile, that we could do so many different things. I've seen doctors who move from clinical practice to academia, or from academia to go into industry, work for drug companies sometimes, or move from a practice to a leadership role, or from a leadership role to a consultant role, what I'm doing. So everybody's situation is different. I feel that when we go to medical school, we focus on patient care, but most of us have other skills, and those skills can go dormant for a very long time. So what I do is help physicians identify what other skills they might have that would make them successful, maybe in a different role. I don't think that we are done when we finish medical training and we set on a career path. Many of us have other skills and talents that we enjoy using. So I help physicians to identify what they love doing and move towards that.
I love that. What a great job you created for yourself. It sounds like so much fun, and you so relate to them. Having been a doctor, having been in the system, you all can talk about, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and relate.
Yes.
As opposed to an advisor that never had been a doctor, or
yes.
So I think it's the perfect career path for you, and a really exciting one in both helping physicians and then helping organizations to have a better payment system, since it is a broken system. Really helping the world to, or at least our country, to have a better healthcare system. So bravo on the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to pivot back to, I'm so excited that you and your husband are supporters of Show Her the Money.
Yes.
We've loved having you at some of the screenings. We've had a good time with that. And that you are a big proponent also of specifically helping women to discover what they want to do next, or helping them with their startup. Because obviously that's what the movie is all about.
Yes.
So we both have that in common, that we want to see that change to get more women funded. And of course, that's what Show Her the Money is all about, getting more women to invest in venture capital, and in turn investing in women, which women tend to be a better investment. They get
Yes.
a better return on the dollar. They stretch the dollar further. They usually exit sooner. All the research points to women being a great investment. And so it really is a mystery why more people haven't invested in women. But I think the tide is turning,
Yes.
As we can see with what's going on in the world in so many capacities, wink, wink. And, so it's good to see things changing like this. But I'm glad that you as a woman are taking the lead in helping doctors and medical companies jump into the future of what things should look like. Because whether you're a doctor or whatever profession you're in, you should be loving what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
It feeds the soul. Nobody
Yes.
wants to be burnt out. And
Yes.
it's really great what you're doing, Eva. I'm glad that you took that leap.
Yes.
It's a big leap to go from corporate to entrepreneurship. I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like once people do, they never
Yes.
want to go back.
Yes.
Entrepreneurship is really an exciting arena to jump
Yes.
into. Yeah.
And I feel that I talk to a lot of women physicians, and we are so focused on the tried and true. And it is a big leap. And I'm going to be honest about it. It was not always straightforward. And sometimes I had very scary times. But as you said, once you're on the other side,
Yeah.
it just gets better and better.
And, it's so interesting. I saw that trepidation in you. And I'm thinking,
Yes.
Here's this woman. She's so smart. You're so accomplished. Here you were running these really big companies. I mean, you were like the big cheese running, very large entities in this medical field and insurance field. And so I'm glad that you took that leap and built that confidence that, hey, I can do this entrepreneurship, because certainly smart women that are executives can certainly take those same skills and run their own business.
Yes.
And so you're living proof of that and a good example.
When we invested in the movie and when we met, it really helped me see how others were going through similar paths. And
right.
I always imagined that I will leave corporate and it's going to be smooth sailing and I have a lot to offer and I will just sail into entrepreneurship, but it's not like that. It was incredibly helpful to meet other entrepreneurs, maybe not in the medical business, but others who were related to the movie or featured in the movie or some of the events. I met others who were starting new businesses, and it was incredibly helpful to see the variety, the funding, what is possible.
It's always funny when people see the movie at the screenings, they always say to me, I saw myself in the movie.
Yes.
And it makes people laugh. It makes them cry, because it's a very heartfelt stories that we share in the movie of the journey of entrepreneurship, how hard it can be, but how rewarding it can be. I know it's not for everybody, but it is probably one of the most exciting paths people can take.
Yes.
And so maybe even it's like I can't say it. Eleanor Roosevelt said that do something every day that scares you, right? And so I think that's what entrepreneurship is. Every day we're doing something that scares us. And that is really what makes it exhilarating.
Yes.
And even the failures are rewarding, because, you're just learning from them. And every entrepreneur is going to have them. That's inevitable. But when you get the wins, I think it's way more rewarding than anything.
Yes.
Because then, you kind of perpetuated that yourself. And really, entrepreneurs are really about making an incredible difference in the world. And that's what you're doing with your entrepreneur path. You are making a big difference in the lives of physicians, startup entrepreneurs, and organizations that have these broken payment systems. Like, this is literally helping change the world.
Yes.
Yeah. How gratifying, right?
It is wonderful. And what I think about is that throughout my career, I always mentored others, especially women, to really create this balance in leadership and how we lead organizations. But we don't always see the fruits of our business we don't always see the fruits of our labor.
Right.
That we mentor others, they mentor others. And when I question my impact, I always think about that we don't know it. We just don't know how we are improving the lives of others. When I was in these big positions, I know that I had an impact, a positive impact on millions of patients, and I'm never going to really see it.
But you knew it within yourself, and that can be gratifying.
It's important to know, yes, and remind ourselves. When there are the ups and downs, and when it's maybe challenging, to sit back and say, I came this far.
Yes. Yeah. And what accomplishments you've made, and what incredible accomplishments you're creating in this new business. So thank you for sharing this. It's really informative, kind of an area I know nothing about. So that's why I was like, I'm going to let her do most of the talking. So this is amazing. Thanks for enlightening our listeners today. If people want to reach you, you're on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's the best way. And also through my website, evabalint.com.
And, for those just listening, it's Eva, of course, EVA, and then Balint, which is BALINT. So you can find her website and find her on LinkedIn as well. And, of course, you can find me, Catherine Gray, Catherine with a C and Gray with an A. Our SheAngelInvestors.com has plenty of resources to help entrepreneurs get started. And if you're looking for a good leadership coach, you can always reach out to Eva. And of course, you can find our movie, showherthemoneymovie.com, to see where it's screening or how to see it. We've been on a 100-city tour, and we're going into corporations and groups being able to stream it through Kinema. So reach out to us on the website, showherthemoneymovie.com. Eva, thanks so much for being a great guest. Thanks for being an associate producer on our film. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to Invest in Her. Make it a great week.